morning, Polyphony community. I'm Doug Haney, Executive Director with Polyphony Music Resources. And with me today is friend and colleague Tony Vincent. Tony, welcome to Polyphony this morning and to this conversation.
Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Tony is Associate Minister at Trinity Baptist Church in Seneca, South Carolina. And we are celebrating with you today, Tony, because you've recently passed a milestone that's just amazing, 20 years
Yes.
in one place. I think the official date was October 1st of this year, just a few weeks ago. So we are saying congratulations to you on 20 years in serving one place. That's just really wonderful.
It's been a blessing. It's a gift. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things we're trying to do in Polyphony is to together as a community figure out in this day and time, how do we build sustainable vocational lives as church musicians? And I think one of the ways that we can do that, one of the resources available to us is when we have folks like Tony who've been at a place, served a place for a long time, when we can learn from their story. And so Tony and I are going to share this conversation today to learn a little bit more about that story and how in the world he stayed at one place for 20 years, which is no small feat. So Tony, tell us a little more about yourself, about your background, early years, influential teachers, maybe your calling, anything you want to share just about you.
Yeah, sure. I have we all have our unique journeys. I'm a preacher's kid. I grew up in the church, and my dad never served anywhere longer than 7 years in ministry at a certain location. So in my life, we have been in different churches, but mostly in the South Carolina area. So I grew up knowing the church. I grew up in children's choirs and a youth choir, but experienced the good and the pain of church ministry, and saw it firsthand and up close. My high school choir, or my high school program, did not have a choral program, but had a strong band program. And I went to college thinking I was going to be a band director. One of the most influential early people in my music life was my band director, and and so still have a good relationship and friendship with him. So I went to the University of South Carolina thinking I would go to be a marching band director, and got out of that pretty quickly. I stayed within the marching band for 3 of my 4 years, but did not feel like that was my place and my calling. And so graduated from USC with a history degree and a minor in African American studies, which is another long journey to tell you about. But anyway, during my college years, my late college years, I started feeling God working in me in some way to ministry, drawing me to ministry. Having had some painful experiences in the church with my dad's ministries, I began bargaining with God, which of course never works, and said, fine, I will go to seminary, but I do not want to work in a church. I was thinking I would go into chaplaincy, either hospital chaplaincy or possibly military chaplaincy. And so but then arrived at my school location, my school choice of Gardner-Webb University in North Carolina, and immediately was in my first year was offered an opportunity to serve as a part-time music minister at a church, a little country church in Shelby, North Carolina, Pleasant Grove Baptist Church. And this church welcomed me and loved me and blessed me and allowed me to experience church ministry on my own. That was formational for me and a blessing. And in my time at Gardner-Webb, encountered people and mentors who guided me in my studies and helped me to consider church ministry again. My last year at Gardner-Webb, I was trying to figure out what's next and what I was going to do. My sister, older sister, was already a member of Trinity Baptist Church, and she said, "Hey, we've got a new pastor here. He's younger. He might be able to talk with you about his experience of stepping into the church from seminary. Come and meet him."
Okay.
So I came for a visit for my nephew's birthday and set up an appointment to meet with the new pastor of this church, Ryan Wilson. He thought I was coming to talk about an upcoming position that the church was getting ready to start seeking, minister of
Okay.
education. He was confused
Okay.
why I didn't bring a resume. And
Oh,
so
that
we
well, that is
sat and he said, at the end of our
fortuitous.
visit, yes. So at the end of our visit, he said, send me your resume. And so several months go by, um, two interviews. And then in the middle of I had one class left in my fall semester. I had to take Greek that I had not taken. And
Oh,
I had
oh,
one class left. And the church called me to be minister of Christian education, a full-time position. Um, and so for my first 8 years here, I served in that role. But we had a part-time music minister, retired elementary school music minister. She was a saint and a loving, encouraging person. I learned a lot from watching her care, the pastoral care that she gave the
mm,
choir
mm,
and the church in her role. I learned a lot about ministry from Joe.
right, right.
And she retired when she retired. The church leadership came to me and said, "Tony, we have identified in you these passions and these gifts, and we would like to reshape your position around your gifts and your passions." And those two main areas were music and worship and missions. Um, I felt pretty inadequate with my music education. I
Mm,
had not ever taken a conducting class. I had grown up in church choirs under great musicians, and learned a lot as in band about directing. But I had not, other than my leading the choir at Pleasant Grove of about 8 to 10 singers, I
yeah,
didn't have a
yeah.
lot of experience. But they blessed me with the opportunity to grow into this role. And
Mm,
so my areas, as I said, are missions and music. And
nice.
it it keeps me connected with the whole of our church, not
Mm,
just with music ministry. I am
right, right.
I am able to work with our youth and work with our children and work
Uh,
with our senior adult, just all ages, in not just in my music and worship capacity.
oh, okay.
So that has been a gift to me to be able to stay connected in all aspects of the church ministry. So, um,
Wow. That's really so powerful. I, 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 I occasionally will see some of our colleagues who, with the best of intentions, get sort of siloed in their work. And
mhm,
then you hear about anecdotally, they get critiqued as being standoffish.
mhm.
And when I don't really think that's where their heart is, they're just focused on music and
Yes.
worship because that's
Yeah.
what they love. And they haven't figured out how to be the music minister for the whole church.
When the church came to me and said, "We see your passions with how the church does missions in the world
Hmm.
and in this area, and we said we want to shape your job around where your energy and passion is." That was such a
Wow.
remarkable gift to me to be
Wow.
able to say, "This is they see who I am and where I'm passionate,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
they want to encourage that and bless that." And
Wow.
so that is such a beautiful thing that this church gave, the gift that this church gave me in my ministry to be able to do what I love and what I'm passionate
Uh-huh.
about. And so
Yeah.
it's been a
Mm.
healthy thing. The other part of it is, and this starts with our senior pastor Ryan. There's no turf with Ryan. We work well together. We're not best friends, but we balance each other very well. There are
Yes.
people in the congregation that I relate to better than Ryan does, and vice versa. And so there's no, I have to do this because I'm the pastor. You have to do this over there because you're the we it is the opposite of silos. We are meshed
Wow.
in
Mm.
ministry together very well, and so it's not perfect. We don't always
Yeah.
agree on how we
Sure.
do things, but
Yeah.
we serve well together, and
That
I
is
think,
so great.
yeah,
That's
it's a
such a good
blessing.
word. Yeah. Well, I'd like to kind of take you back in time, invite you to go back in time and think about those first 5 years.
Mhm.
You've come from, what was it, Pleasant Grove Baptist
Yes,
Church in
Pleasant Grove Baptist.
Shelby.
Yes. Uh,
You finished at Gardner Webb.
yes, I
Um,
had
Tell
a
us about
yeah,
whatever challenges you may have
yeah,
faced, or just tell us a little bit about those
yeah,
early years.
yeah. I had a remarkable community at Gardner Webb of classmates and faculty, frankly, that I were a part of my life, a daily life, deep friendships.
Hmm.
I was single at the time. I was not yet married. I was dating a Gardner Webb student. So I left this close knit community and came to this town where, yes, I had family here. I had a sister and her family in this church. But I remember taking on a mission trip. We were on a trip somewhere, and there was an uh, old Southern Seminary graduate on this trip.
Hmm.
Had been in church ministry for decades and was retired. And I looked at him and I said, Dan, does this work always feel this lonely? And we had a long. I recognized that I was struggling with depression from losing or those relationships, those close knit relationships of my seminary days, changing and evolving and being sort of
Uh-huh.
isolated in this new role. Seneca is a small town. It is a we're kind of isolated in our area. We're an hour from anything pretty much, other than Clemson University right down the street. But we are. So I just felt isolated and alone. And I recently broken up with a girlfriend. I had not yet met the woman who would become my wife, and so it was a hard time in my life. What I Where I found. I had some encouragement from some friends to seek out a peer learning group, and I found a group that met weekly, that met once a week, which was an intensive
Yeah.
commitment.
Right.
It was a drive of about 45 minutes every Monday, and so it was an intensive, but it gave me connection and it gave me support and encouragement, that I very much needed in that time in my
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And so it was a new community that was able to support and
Nice.
understand. I had friends. I mean,
Sure.
I'm serving in an area. I grew up about 30 minutes from here, so I have some long term friends, that I have had in my life. But they don't quite understand church ministry. They don't understand church
Yeah.
work.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
So being able to have people in my life and community support with
Yeah.
friends who understand this life a little bit better, was um, that was a challenge that I faced and how I was able to address it in my life. And so I
Yeah.
married a woman who was also a preacher's kid. We
Okay.
have very
Nice.
similar
Yeah.
experiences. We differ on a lot of things, but on understanding of what the church is and on the understanding of politics, those two areas we agree. And so
Okay. Very
we're
good.
able to deal with all the other things that we may not experience the same,
Perhaps
because
those are the essentials,
they
huh?
are some essentials, yes. So that has been a gift to me, just an extended family that also understands this life of church,
Wow. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
yes, that's um, I
How
think that's
good. How
yeah.
good. Yeah. So, thinking about your work, what over the years has brought you the greatest joy? I mean,
Hmm.
what have you gotten to do that you love to do? We're often asked, we end up with things in our portfolios that are not always in our wheelhouse, or maybe
Yes,
it's not what we love to do, but tell us about what you have
yeah,
loved to do. And it sounds like your church has been very supportive and
yes,
astute
yes,
in figuring out what you love to do, but just
yeah.
comment on that a little bit.
Well, in both of my primary areas, seeing the church engage in the mission of God in the world, is one of the things that drives me as a minister.
Hmm.
This is a active church on mission, and
Okay.
so being able to connect. So just give you an example, we developed a partnership with Project Ruth in Bucharest, Romania, probably about 12 years ago, and we've sent 7 or 8 teams through the years. We just had a team go, of teachers go, over fall break, and do some continuing education. But seeing the relationships that happen because of these mission trips, both
Mhm.
within our congregation, seeing a senior adult woman and a high school kid running across the fellowship hall on Wednesday nights to hug because they hadn't seen each other in a while, but they spent that mission time together.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
developed that relationship on a mission trip. That is something that brings me joy. Just the connections that are
Mhm.
made through the
Mhm.
ministry of the church. Along those lines with our music ministry, we have a very remarkable, uh, long-term successful choral program in our local high school.
Oh, wow.
Had a long-term leader who developed that program and has sustained it for many years. She is retired. She is actually my accompanist now and is a gift. But
Wow.
her replacement is equal or is equally as remarkable. And so we have a healthy choral program in our high school.
Okay.
Each year for Christmas, I invite some of her high performing students to come and sing in our Christmas cantata, and I pay them some to come and join with us. And on the Sunday of my 20th anniversary, the church commissioned a piece by Kyle Matthews for the celebration, and some of those singers who are all now in college students came back to sing with our choir
Oh,
just to sell
wow.
and walks. It was a surprise to me, and seeing them walk into the choir
Yeah.
loft on Sunday
Yeah.
morning with my choir was a brought me great joy just to see
Yeah.
their commitment to come back and
Yeah.
serve and sing and celebrate. And so we've been able to foster a relationship with our high
Huh.
school choral program
Yeah.
um, through the years that has been such a blessing to us. And I think it's been helpful. We've developed a choral scholars program. I've got 3 this semester that sing with us. Not a large scale program, but we have these college students that come and sing with us, and we're hoping to give them a healthy and positive experience of church
Yes.
choirs so that wherever they land, they'll continue singing. And
Wonderful. Wonderful.
we really have been blessed by
Yeah.
their presence with us. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, just the way that these ministry opportunities we have can foster community and connection is so beautiful. And so when I go to our high school choir concerts and I see 30 or 40 Trinity people supporting these high school kids because they're connected with, it's just such a beautiful thing,
Wow.
the
That
relationships and the
is
connections.
that's so great.
Yeah.
So many of us over the years have sort of employed the choral scholars, the
Hmm.
collegiate singer model
Yes.
in
Hmm.
some way. I
Yeah.
have to admit, I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone being as creative as you about tapping into some gifted high school singers.
Well,
And
we're very
even doing that
fortunate
on a
here.
short term, just a short
Yeah.
term project.
Yes, yeah, we're very fortunate here with the level of singers that we have in our high school choral program, and so that's a blessing. But we have, I mean, I've got 12, I think, this year that will be singing with us at Christmas,
Really?
and
That's so
they're so excited. I went and worked with some of them at the beginning in August. In August, at the beginning of the school year, over at
okay.
the high school, and one of the first things I was asked by a kid that's not connected at all to Trinity said, "Can I come sing at Christmas this year?" And I said, "I will send you a message." Yes. So it was already on their mind in August that
That
this
is
was
so
coming in
great.
December. So
That is
yeah,
so fantastic. I love
yeah,
that. I love
yeah,
that. Well, those are some of the high water marks, it sounds
yeah,
like. And I see in your facial expression how much,
yeah,
energy there is
yeah.
around that. But we know that not all of life are bright sunny days, right? That's
Right.
just, I mean, such is life,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Mhm.
and I want you to talk with us a little bit about how you got through the challenging times, the hard times, whatever they were, whatever you feel at liberty to share with us.
Mhm.
Um, what got you through those times, and I guess you might say that when someone has a long tenure, that there's bound to be some episode that if you had not gotten through it, you probably would have ended up elsewhere,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
what would you like to tell us about getting
Yeah.
through the challenging times?
Well, I mean, I'm very comfortable um acknowledging now that early struggle of dealing with depression, of being feeling isolated and alone,
Mm,
and
mm.
how recognizing my need for community uh, was was really hurting my mental health and my well-being. So seeking out people who understand life and ministry was what sustained me and strengthened me during those hard times. Similarly, as many of us experienced, those COVID years were so hard
Mm,
on those of us who crave community. And I can remember we returned back to in-person worship probably earlier than a lot of our other churches did. We were probably out maybe 5 months, 6 months. But we returned. We didn't have congregation. We didn't have any singing. At first we were so I and we probably had maybe 15 or 20% of our congregation that returned initially. And I can just remember those weeks preparing for those worship experiences that were just so hard,
mm, mhm.
and thinking, will this ever end?
Yeah.
Will it ever return? Will life as we knew it ever return? And that but but slowly and but surely, things softened, things returned. Is it the same as it was before? No, it's different. It's but we the the sustaining presence of people in my life who understood that journey, I think, was most helpful. And being able to be honest and open with people who understood my heart and my journey. Being being honest and open is not always easy for those of us because we want to come and brag. We want to be with our friends and talk about all the good stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being honest about the hard, the painful, the grief of this job is essential for me anyway.
Mm.
And so having those people in my life that I was able to be open with was most helpful.
Well, that's such a good word. That's such a good word. That's so helpful. Thank you. Well, if you could start over, would you do anything differently? You know a lot now that maybe you didn't know once upon a time, and I'm not saying you would do anything
Mhm.
differently, but if you could start over today, knowing what you know, would you do anything differently?
Um, I probably would have spent some more time on music education in my own life, learning more. I have had to learn on the fly on a lot of things, and there's a lot I still don't know
Yeah.
about. Uh, but so that I wish I had more of that foundational educational experience. I don't I don't think the music ed program that I was in at South Carolina going toward I don't think that would have been all that help. But some of those classes probably would have been helpful if I had
Mhm.
stayed with that. I have a music theory class under my belt, and that was 30 years ago now. So it's
Yeah.
been, so I
Yeah.
wish I probably should have, but I have had the opportunity to go and sit and watch some music minister. I took a sabbatical and um, was able to just see how a couple of other music ministers led
Nice.
rehearsals and planned worship and things
Yeah.
like that. So I, I wish and maybe and there's still time for me to do more of that. I just I think I should take the time to see how a Doug Haney or someone else leads a rehearsal and learn what I can and glean what I can learn from those times. So that's something I would like to do differently and still have maybe have the opportunity to do differently
Yeah.
to learn in that regard. Gosh, yeah, that would
Maybe
probably
this. Yeah.
be the
Sure.
number one thing that comes to my mind. Yes.
Yeah, sure, 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 sure. Well, what advice might you give an early career church musician? You know, some people
Mhm,
fret a little bit about sort of the state of church music, and church music
mhm.
looks very different in different places, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
We have um, a rich legacy and many legacies of church music, but sometimes I hear people were a little worried about just because church music has changed or church, maybe I should say church music education and training
Mhm.
has
Yes.
changed in the last certainly 20, 25, 30 years. I would say though, I'm getting to meet a lot of remarkably gifted, very impressive early career church musicians who are in their first 5 years, you know.
Mhm.
What advice might you give them sitting where you're sitting today?
Um, you don't have to do it alone.
Good,
You don't
good.
have to, you don't have to have it all figured out on your own. There are people who, if you say, "Can I ask you a question?" who are more than happy to walk with you on those journeys of figuring it out. And so that's just just for understanding and connection. That is just such a gift.
Hmm.
And so I would say you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to pretend like you know everything. Um, the other part of that is I would highly encourage find something beyond music is a vital part, but find some other way of connecting in your church where your
Yeah.
passions are maybe, and find a way to serve your church, or at least be a part of the life of your church in a more broad way than just in the music ministry. That has been such a blessing for my life and my ministry, is just the connections beyond um, you know, our pastor, and this, it might not be in the way, like my pastor Ryan probably has coached at least a third of the children of our community in some rec sport, or he's coaching soccer right now. His kids are in college. He's still coaching high school
Oh wow.
soccer.
Oh wow. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Just, he has found, and his way of serving the community is through that, and finding ways, maybe even outside of your church walls, but
Hmm.
finding ways to be
Right.
present in the lives of people in a place where you're passionate, in a way that you're passionate, is such um, a blessing to my ministry, because it creates more connections with a group of people, or with people that might not ever
Yeah.
sing in your
Right. Right.
choir, or in serve in your music ministry in some way. And
Exactly.
so that's been a beautiful part of my life and ministry, is the connections outside of music ministry, um,
Nice.
that I've been able to serve and grow. So that's probably my advice I would give. It's been helpful
Great.
to me. So
That is so very, very helpful. Yeah. Well, Tony, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation today. We have really learned a lot from you. I want you to know that I've learned some things today. It's
thank you.
so helpful. Um, and I love the way that you've reminded us all about the need for community, the
Mhm.
need to be with people who get what you do, who can maybe finish your sentences when it comes to
Yeah.
ministry, church
Right.
music, and that's so
Yes.
powerful. So again, congratulations to you on 20
Thank you.
years in one place at Trinity Baptist Church in Seneca, South Carolina. They are fortunate to have you leading them, and we wish you many more years of good,
Thank you.
positive, productive ministry there for sure. And so,
Thanks.
from all of us, breathe, bless, and be well.